Well, Toto, welcome back to Australia. I think officially Formula One fever has hit Melbourne like we've never seen before. You've been part of this game for a very long time. Did you ever think when you first began in Formula One that the circus could be as prolific as it is today?
No, it's huge. I remember being here for the first time in 2013, just starting in my role, and it was already a super vibe. But this, now it's... I said yesterday I've been on the fan zone on stage there, and I think it was 10,000 people. You feel like Elton John in front of his crowd, so it was an amazing experience.
24 races this year. Has Formula One peaked, or can the show get bigger?
I think we always need to improve, and we need a good product. We need exciting racing and personalities and a good program around, and the event overall is very well organized here, so you can always get better.
Give us the debrief after qualifying.
Debrief is that we've introduced new regulations 2 years ago where they're not so new anymore, and we are struggling. We've won 8 times in a row, but you can't count on that. It's been more difficult years, and Red Bull is very much at the top, and then it's a gang of Ferrari, McLaren, and maybe ourselves. But today was a difficult day. 7 and 11s is clearly not where we're setting our expectations, but at the same time you need to be humble. They're formidable teams, they're doing great work, and we haven't done that.
What has George said after qualifying?
George said that we're having a gremlin in that car somewhere that allows us to be really fast in some sessions and on some days, but then overall it's just an unstable platform. You're driving it and it's not giving you confidence.
Is that conducive with the feedback that he gave after the first 2 rounds, or is this a car still revealing itself?
It's a little bit the same since 2 years. I think this one is the best of the bad. So it's a better platform to work on, but it's still not a car that a driver feels really good about throwing in the corner at 200 miles an hour.
And Lewis, what was the feedback from him?
Well, Lewis was out and being 11th, and he said he just didn't feel the grip that he felt in the FP3, the practice session right before, where he was within a tenth to Leclerc. It was, or Sainz, the leader. The performance, the pace was gone.
So what are the ideas for tomorrow? I'm sure you've been back talking to HQ and the brains trust that you have working in Brackley. What do you think you could achieve in the Grand Prix?
Again, I'm looking at it with a very long-term perspective. I'm part of the team as a co-shareholder, and I think I want to look back in 10 years and 20 years and say there's been many more championships that we won, but you need to be realistic about what you can achieve in a single weekend. We're not where we want to be. We just gotta, dig deep, put our head down, and continue to work and add performance, and eventually, be more competitive. But I doubt it's going to happen tomorrow.
You know how to harness the beast in Lewis, and I don't know that we've seen him quite as despondent as we did when he got out of the car on Friday. He said it's the least confidence he's had in this car for quite some time. How do you pick him up when he's in that mindset?
I think you should have heard him after FP3 this morning. He said that the car is the best in 3 years. He had so much rear downforce and he feels confident. And we didn't change the car a lot. Track temperature changed by 5 degrees, believe it or not, so that's nothing. And the car transformed from something that was the best in 3 years to something that is undrivable.
So how do you explain that?
Well, we have no idea. We're looking at the...
Is that part of the issue, though?
That's part of the issue. We're having 2,500 people that work on these cars, the half on the engine, the other half on the chassis, and we are looking at everything. And there's something which our technology is not showing us, because this window of performance is so narrow, where the aero works or it doesn't. Lots of wind. The wind picked up in the afternoon. That plays a role, but we haven't really been able to pinpoint it.
You had said on Friday that you were experimenting with some things in the car. Is that something we're likely to see throughout the season on Fridays, particularly for Lewis?
I think we are coming to a point now that we probably need to experiment every single race, not only on Friday, because our performance seems to get worse throughout the weekend. We're good on Friday, then we are good in some of the sessions on Saturday, but the more grip we have, the faster it goes, the more we reach the ceiling of the performance ceiling of the car. And our data show us it's not the ceiling.
Hindsight's always a beautiful thing. When you think back over how the championship has transpired over the last couple of years, what do you feel like has been the turning point where you maybe have lost your way? Can you pinpoint that?
I think we've lost our way at the beginning of 22 because all our tools and systems gave us cars that were winning championships every single year. And then the new regulations were very much around the ground effect. That means all the suction happens through the floor. And we came out with a car that showed all the promises on the data and in the wind tunnel, but we didn't deliver. And then since then, we've changed everything from the layout, the suspension, the driver's position, the gearboxes. But it seems that the fundamental issue is at the core. We haven't solved it.
The big story, of course, coming into the season was that Lewis Hamilton would be leaving this team, a team that he's been part of and had great success with for such a long time, to Ferrari. What was the time difference between you finding out that was his decision and then the rest of the world knowing that?
Not a lot. I think it was difficult for him to really tell me, because he left for the Christmas holiday and was Mercedes forever. Normally that's a time where we don't speak a lot because he's gone, because otherwise we're speaking every day. And then he came back and said, can we have a coffee? He came for the coffee. That's the normal thing we're doing when the season kicks off. And he said, I'm leaving to Ferrari. And I said, really? And not that it shocked me, because we knew that we have a short-term contract, but the timing at the beginning of the season. And I said, why at the beginning of the season? He said he just wanted to have it out and not have it as a burden, emotional burden. And then you got to stay pragmatic. After a 5-minute shock and disbelief, it was like, okay, what are we doing announcement? What are we doing going forward into the season? And he said, well, the announcement is a tricky thing because I think it's leaking. So it didn't give me lots of options.
Yeah, imagine that, leaking in Formula One.
Who would ever thought so?
In your heart of hearts, knowing the personal relationship that you have with him, were you disappointed?
No, not at all. I think sports people have let's say a limited shelf life when they are at the peak of their performance, peak of their earning power, and that is maybe 10 or to 15 years, and they gotta do it, and it's that limited amount of time where you want to win as many races and earn as much as possible. And that's why I understand that he says, I gotta go a different path, I need to reinvent myself. And I see the positives, because our years were so great, and we really have a strong bond, and in the same way we're able to separate in wishing each other really all the best. I hope we're beating him on track, and we on the same time can embark in a new route with another new driver next to George.
You're a competitive beast. What is it going to feel like for you when you see him lining up on the grid for Ferrari next to? Is it a bit more fire?
I think first I can't imagine him in the red. I don't think it suits him, but I think that picture is going to be interesting. And then I told him, you got to really picture our rear wing, because that's the perspective you're going to have.
Very good. I like that. Do you think having Max in your car right now would add to performance?
No, I just think he's extraordinary, but we would give him a car that's a handful. Difficult to set up and drive, and I'd rather make that step and be out there and say, this is a car you could drive, because it's also going fast.
Do you think that you're going to have a decision on that anytime soon? What is the time frame around actually knowing who that person is going to be next to George?
That as much as we were taken aback by Lewis's decision so quickly, now I want to really take my time. We have a slot free, the only one in the top teams, unless Max decides he goes, then the slot is not going to be free with us anymore. There is a few options that are really interesting for us, from the very young super talent to some of the elder ones who are very experienced. And that's not going to happen in the next few weeks or a month or so. I want to continue to monitor the market.
So when is it likely that you'll have a decision? Is it something that you do post-season at the end of the year?
No, towards the summer. I think towards the summer.
Will George's performance this year influence the decision that you make ultimately on the teammate that he'll have?
No, he's a bank. He's having that seat. He has been part of our junior program for a long time, and it's a reason why, because he's great. And so it's about the second seat.
But by that I mean, if George can perform this year, you'll opt for someone that is younger and less experienced to be second to him, or perhaps if it doesn't go his way, do you need to opt for experience?
Well, I don't know yet. I think it